RCR reveals a new Cup Series driver. Brad Keselowski calls on NASCAR to penalize more teams, and Joey Logano says Ross Chastain finished second this week in his book. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Lots to get to today. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We talk NASCAR news, we react to races, we discuss rumors and rumblings every single day, so stay in the loop, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Richard Childress Racing just announced a new Cup Series driver who will make their debut at Michigan this weekend. We'll talk about that in a moment, but I don't want to get too far removed from Indianapolis just yet. If you recall, at the very end of this past weekend's Verizon 200 NASCAR Cup Series race at the Indy Road Course, Ross Chastain from I think 4th, 5th place chose to take the access road rather than race through turns 1 and 2 and get bottlenecked up into the grass. He came out with the lead, eventually got passed by Tyler Reddick, who went on to win the race, but crossed the line second and was penalized by NASCAR. NASCAR decided that Chastain using the access road was the equivalent of him shortcutting the corner, so they assigned him a 30-second penalty that caused him to finish, I think, 27th or 28th instead. Now, I said on Sunday that while I think what Chastain did was kind of a cheap move, and I'm glad he didn't win the race by doing it, I certainly hope NASCAR didn't just penalize him for exposing a vague loophole in the NASCAR rulebook. We saw plenty of other drivers use the access road at various times during the weekend, in the Xfinity race, in the Cup race. In some cases, it was clearly to dodge a wreck that was happening, in which case no penalty was warranted. But in other times, it was much less clear, and we didn't see any 30-second penalties assigned throughout the entire weekend. It only happened when Ross Chastain made that move on the final restart. So was it a fair call by NASCAR? Joey Logano said during his weekly SiriusXM NASCAR radio show that Ross Chastain finished second in his book.
From what I understand, and I may be wrong, but what I understand, what they did is legal. Austin Dillon did it in the Xfinity race. I watched it. All of us saw it and had conversations about it with our teams. This was a real play in the playbook. Hey, if it looks like you're going to be 5 wide on the outside, blow the corner. Go hard to the cutout, boom, pop back out. You're probably going to come out ahead. Right? I mean, we didn't have it fully calculated to say we're going to gain spots, but it was going to be definitely safer. And you're probably, after everything is bottled up and everyone's going so slow through the first couple corners, you're probably going to come out ahead. This happened at an Xfinity race this year too. There was a cutout somewhere like the same thing was happening, and no one made a call. No, NASCAR didn't make a call. What I saw Ross do, great. He snookered everybody. He got him. You know what I mean? He pulled it off. He did it. He had the guts to do that, right? Like, he finished second in my book. I don't know. And now he can't do it. Well, what happened the other times? It was okay.
I'll say it again. If NASCAR is going to continue to race at several road courses a year and race at different circuits every year, you know, NASCAR never raced on the Indy Road Course until 2021. This is still a new course, a new layout. As long as NASCAR continues to expand their road racing portfolio, which they're planning on doing, they're going to a street race next year, they need to be better prepared. They need clearer, more well-defined rules. They may even need to change some of their procedures. I've talked about maybe local cautions. Local yellows could be something explored at some tracks in the future. Track limits. We saw drivers penalized at COTA this year for cutting corners. Access road use. When is it acceptable? When is it not? Hindsight's 2020, sure, but NASCAR should have at least a little more foresight than this. The moment they saw the way that turn 1 access runoff road was laid out, they needed to make a clear call to the teams and drivers. If you go through it, you may have to make a stop and go. That's just the rule. Something, anything, because right now it feels like Chastain exposed a loophole in the rulebook and NASCAR kind of unfairly threw the book at him. NASCAR's the sanctioning body, they get the final say, but if you keep making up rules as you go along, your credibility will plummet. Just saying. Again, glad Ross Chastain didn't win the race with that move, but it certainly feels like and looks more and more like NASCAR kind of unfairly penalized him. At least that's what Joey Logano believes. Now, while we're on the subject of officiating, penalties, Kelly Crandall, writing for Racer.com, posted a story today featuring several quotes from Brad Keselowski. Remember, Keselowski and his team, RFK, were hit with an L2 level penalty earlier in the season. They were docked 100 driver, 100 owner points, 10 playoff points. They were put in a deep, deep hole for modifying the rear tailpiece, a single source spec part of the next gen car. NASCAR promised in the offseason stricter penalties this year, and they delivered in the case of Brad Keselowski. And we've seen recently, front row, Michael McDowell was hit with a similar penalty for modifying a single source part. They were also docked 100 points, exactly the same thing Keselowski was, and the team actually dropped their appeal today. Meanwhile, we saw Petty GMS hit with an L1 penalty recently. Obviously, Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin were actually disqualified at Pocono a couple weeks ago, so NASCAR is beginning to crack down more and more. But Brad Keselowski, according to this Racer.com piece, believes NASCAR should be handing down even more penalties. Here's some of what he said. I personally think the sport needs more penalties and that NASCAR needs to be handing them out like candy right now to get control of the garage, because we've been playing a lot of games for a lot of years. The games have to stop. The games cost a lot of money, and those games come directly at the expense of being able to afford to do things that we'd like to be able to do, or just to be able to afford to race. So looking at that, the easiest way for NASCAR to stop those expenses is to stop the games. Keselowski putting the team owner hat on right there. Of course, the reason NASCAR promised to strictly officiate the next-gen car was for exactly the reasons Keselowski just spelled out. To fulfill their promise of making it more affordable, more cost-effective to field a competitive NASCAR Cup Series team. That was the number one goal of the next-gen car. And in order to attain that goal, there had to be a complete culture shift in the garage, at the race shops. No more skirting the lines, playing in that gray area. No, these spec cars had to be officiated strictly to keep the costs down, so teams weren't continuously trying to outspend each other to find little gray area competitive edges. So that's what Keselowski is talking about right there. But he says they should be handing out penalties like candy. They should be dishing out even more infractions. I'll read you one more quote from Brad Keselowski. I thought this was interesting. He said, I know after our issues at Atlanta, we went through our entire company and said, no more games. Nothing goes on with these cars, period. And that's a rapid culture shift. And there's a lot of people inside our own company that didn't like it. But the reality is NASCAR is setting precedent that needed to be set. And we support being set, that are important to the future of our industry and its viability. I support NASCAR. Strong words there from Brad Keselowski. Look, for better or for worse, the era of outside-the-box creativity, let's say, is starting to come to an end. It's a shame because some of my favorite stories from 10, 15, 30 years ago are about the creative things crew chiefs and engineers and teams would come up with to maybe gain an advantage without NASCAR knowing. But it's good in the sense that if NASCAR can actually crack down and keep everyone in line, then costs will be reined in, and hopefully that leads to more competitive teams in the future. The sport, as Keselowski says, becomes more economically viable, and that is good for the entire industry. So there's pros and cons to it, but it's where we're at. The next gen car is a spec car, and NASCAR needs to officiate it tightly if it's going to achieve its goal of being cheaper to run in the long haul. But I thought this was interesting. Keselowski, the first driver, the first team to get nailed by these stricter penalties, he's calling for more. Keep dishing them out. Now, lastly, you'll recall a week ago, Richard Childress Racing put out a not-so-subtle tweet that seemed to be hinting at Austin Hill making his NASCAR Cup Series debut sooner rather than later. Well, earlier this morning, RCR made it official. That's right, Austin Hill will make his NASCAR Cup Series debut this weekend at Michigan International Speedway. He'll be driving the 33 car. Last time we saw the 33 on track was Austin Cindric, a few part-time starts last year, but that was a Penske Ford. Last time we saw an RCR Chevy run the 33, I don't know, maybe like Ty Dillon or Austin back in like mid 2010s. I can't remember if anyone ran it since then. Maybe somebody. I know Reddick made some starts, I think, in the 31, if I'm not mistaken, before he went full-time. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. But it's cool to see the RCR 33 back, and it's cool to see Austin Hill, one of the top guys in Xfinity this year, get a chance to make a Cup Series start. He's 28 years old. He's not one of the youngest prospects in the garage by any means. But that experience may play to his advantage. He's run 4 full-time seasons in the trucks. He's won 8 total races, was competitive there, driving for a couple different teams over those handful of years. He's been in Xfinity full-time this season and has 2 wins, both at super speedways, Daytona the season opener and Atlanta a few weeks ago. He's not one of the biggest or boldest personalities in the Xfinity series. He's quietly flown under the radar a bit this year, but he's a solid driver. I think it's fine to see him in the NASCAR Cup Series. Obviously, sponsor support helping play a major role. There'll be an open team this week, but there are not 40 cars on the entry list, so he'll make the field. We'll see where he starts. But pretty exciting for Austin Hill. I want to talk bigger picture because there's been a lot of speculation around Tyler Reddick's future. Ever since he made that surprise announcement a few weeks ago that he would be leaving RCR and Chevy for Toyota and 2311 at the end of next season, the entire industry has held their breath, wondering, Will Richard Childress let him go a year early? We know Richard Childress didn't take that announcement well. Remember, RCR put out that statement saying that the timing literally could not be worse. Does this news of Austin Hill making his Cup Series debut this weekend say anything about Tyler Reddick's future? I'm gonna say no. Look, Richard Childress is not happy with how things have played out the last few weeks. He is still miffed at Tyler Reddick, at Toyota, at everyone for sure. But he indicated this weekend at Indianapolis after Reddick won the race that Tyler Reddick will race the remainder of his RCR contract, presumably through the end of the 2023 season. So I don't think they're going to let him out a year early. Obviously things can change, but that's where I believe things are right now. Now, Tyler Reddick earlier this weekend did admit that he and Richard Childress hadn't talked for 3 weeks. He said, quote, "But a win can smooth things right over. I told him, as long as I'm racing here, I'm going to do everything I can to win races for this team. I'd love to win a championship or two with them. They've helped me come so far as a driver, and I'm going to give them everything I've got." Now, a lot of people reacted to this quote from Richard Childress on Sunday after Reddick won the race, where he compared Kevin Harvick's departure in 2013-2014 to this Tyler Reddick news, and Childress said, "Kevin and I had talked through his whole ordeal, and we made a joint announcement. He won 4 races that year, and we almost won the championship. This one didn't happen like that." So clearly, Richard Childress is still not happy with how Tyler Reddick went about announcing his departure. The fact that he's leaving RCR at all has Richard Childress feeling a little peeved, but I don't think Richard Childress right now is planning on dropping Reddick a year early. And I think that's the smart move. I hope that's the move Richard Childress ends up going with. Because if you're Richard Childress Racing, you need to show everyone, drivers, sponsors, fans, that RCR is a competitive team, a championship contending team with the right guy behind the wheel. Tyler Reddick in the 8 car will make that equipment look the best it possibly can. The results will speak to sponsors, but perhaps even more importantly, it will speak to free agent drivers. So at the end of 2023, there are a ton of drivers potentially who will be available. Obviously, this is over a year away, but as of right now, Kyle Larson's contract is up after next year. We know Kevin Harvick and Kurt Busch's contract are up. Alex Bowman doesn't have a contract past next year. Joey Logano, I know Shell just signed an extension, but I don't think they've worked out one for him just yet, although they likely will. Truex, I think, only signed a 1-year extension, so he could be available. I don't even know about Denny Hamlin's contract situation. He may be technically up after next year. Blaney's another one that's kind of unknown. So the point is, there are a ton of star drivers who could be coaxed away from their current teams and convinced to join Richard Childress Racing if it's seen as a truly viable competitive option. So I think it's in Richard Childress's best interest to keep Reddick in that seat as long as he's contractually able to, because as long as Reddick drives the 8 car, it's going to contend for wins and maybe, just maybe, will contend for a championship. And that's the best Richard Childress Racing has looked in almost 10 years. So I hope Richard Childress isn't trying to deceive the media. I hope he truly intends on keeping Reddick in the 8 car next season. I think that's best for his entire organization, but good luck to Austin Hill this weekend. Austin Hill will absolutely be in the running for a full-time gig come 2024. This will be his first of likely many little tryouts. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Are you excited to see Austin Hill behind the wheel of the 33? We talked about a lot in this episode. Keselowski's comments, Logano's comments. Share your thoughts down in this comment section below. Again, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We talk NASCAR every single day. The news cycle has not slowed down one bit. As always, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. Y'all go above and beyond to support the show, to help the channel grow. It truly means the world to me. I really appreciate it. More to come this week. Also got some fun stuff to announce, so be on the lookout. All my social medias, all those links are down in the description below. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next episode.